Underlight is one of the earliest 3D MMOs and is focused entirely on player-driven content and in-game role-playing. In fact, the in-game role-playing is so important to this game, it's actually a rule that you have to role-play as your character. You cannot discuss anything to do with the real world. There are no quests, no NPCs, and no central story. It's entirely dependent on players creating the adventure through interaction with other players. The only flaw with this system is when the game has no players, there is literally nothing to do. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Strife Hayes, and this is Worst MMO Ever, a series where I play every MMO I can find in a search to find the worst. Drop a like on the video or sub to the channel for more MMO stuff. Ring the bell for all the future notifications. As usual, a massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel alive. More on how you can support at the end. For now, let's begin. Today we are playing Underlight, one of the earliest 3D MMOs and a pioneer of the genre. It does, however, feature several incredibly complex and convoluted systems and in-game interaction methods we'll cover later, including how you join factions and how you level up, both being entirely reliant on other players letting you. Underlight is on Steam, it's free, and it's only a few hundred megabytes, so let's give it a go. When you launch the game, you're asked which client you want to join, the normal game, the nightmare game, or two even harder sounding versions, so I'll stick with the normal one for now. This brings up a very 1998 looking window. This is your sign-in screen, but it recommends you click on the starter guide for help doing this. Right, if you need a starter guide for how to complete your sign-up process, then you need to streamline your sign-up process. You should not require the player to think this early on. Remember, every small road bump is a quit moment for players, and this game is littered with quit moments. When you create an account, you'll have the game's plot explained to you. Underlight is a dream dimension. Every player is a dreamer, and as such you have no knowledge of the real world or real events. So you must, read must as in actually enforced by the rules and in-game GMs, roleplay your character as a dreamer. When you make your character, you've got 4 archetypes: willpower, insight, resilience, and lucidity, which broadly correlate to warrior, scholar, protector, and trickster. Now, I can lucid dream in real life, so I'll go with lucidity. Set my character's name as Josh Strife Hayes and go to log in. And it doesn't recognise me. It doesn't recognise the character I've just made because it cannot find Josh Strife Hay. And then it closes the program. Right, so if you mistype your name, the client just closes. What great design. Also, I don't think I typed wrong, but maybe I missed some letters, so let's try again. Josh Strife Hayes. And again, it cannot find Josh Strife Hayes. Hang on. Oh my god, I think I know what's happening, but if I'm right, this is incredibly stupid. The game login client has a character name limit. And if you go over that limit, it will only search for the first few characters. But when you make your actual character, you can go over the limit. So if your character name is too long on creation, which it allows you to do, you just can't log in with it when it comes to the game client. What a stunningly incompetent oversight. So I make a new character just called Josh Strife, and now we are in. Quite a small game window, but it's old, so I guess we can forgive that. I'll fix it with the magic of editing. Regular viewers of the channel may already be spotting similarities between this and the first 3D MMORPG Meridian 59, which came out in 1996 and I reviewed a while back. I praised Meridian 59 for several of its fantastic systems, and they even responded to me on Twitter saying they'd taken some of my feedback about textures on board and had retextured some areas to be easier to navigate. I'd like to point out that Underlight released 2 years after Meridian 59, and we seem to have gone backwards in game design. The entire game is first person. You move by clicking your mouse on a screen edge or using WASD, and you can jump with space. To the right, you've got your inventory, usable actions and spells, a list of who's around you, and your own avatar's graphical setup. Double-clicking on an item uses it, provided you're in an area where you can use it, and you'd think double-clicking on a read-me item would bring up a text explanation of it, but no, it tells you to move to a threshold map first. But I don't know what that is. I guess we'll learn as we go. I explore this starting room. You've got various rooms and portals around the edge. Walking into or out of each of these coves gives you a little text alert and a sound. Each portal leads to a great house, and you can join the houses later. I mash some keys and discover that F is use portal. Now, maps in Underlight are all extremely small. It's not going to take you more than a few seconds to a minute to walk across each one. In this new place, I see something on the floor. You can right-click items and scenery for information on them. Then you can left-click and drag them into your inventory. All MMO players are natural kleptomaniacs, so I pick up anything and everything. It might be useful later, you never know. I have a skill called Evoke Trail. Its description is I will drop gems behind me to act as a path marker. Sounds useful, so I cast it. When you cast something, you begin evoking, but on movement, evoking stops. So I stand still to try and cast it, and it takes an absolute age to cast. But look, I have a map. What a terrible map. Each individual place is so small, you don't actually need a local map. You need a world map showing connections. And that's exactly what you don't have. Underlight's world is super complex and has so many small connecting areas daisy chaining off each other into the distance. And every small map, despite being similar, has a unique name. So if you tell your mate to meet you at the small corner, they're going to say, do you mean the lazy turn river, the U-turn, the switchback, the easy turn, the lazy turn again, the long turn, the short turn, the quick turn, the step turn, or more? I didn't make those up, they're all maps in the game, we'll come to them later. I click around the UI and see I can use RP points to increase my stats, but as we'll see later, increasing your stats, indeed gaining RP points at all, requires another player to approve you doing it. It's very community driven, almost to a fault. I try to leave this room. Apparently I can't use most of these portals because I've not been here long enough. And then the game crashes because it lost connection to the server. Fantastic. Right, back in we go. The portals are now working, so we travel to Sanctuary, a larger empty room with various weapons and items scattered around the side. I don't know if these are beginner weapons or high-level weapons, but when I pick them up and double-click them, I'm told I'm not powerful enough to use them. So I need to level up and gain the skills to use this weapon, gain the right to wield them. But as we'll see later, that's going to prove very tough. Through more portals to Providence, a nice waterfall scenic feature. If you right-click on the scenery assets, you're told they're part of the dream and you can't take them. This area is a safe zone, meaning no enemies and no PvP. Not that there are any players to PvP with. It has some water, which I jump into and splash around in, and then some steps, which I gleefully climb, and then a little platforming section. You need to jump up this hill to get back to the first portal, and I like this. I'm glad they've actually made use of the jump mechanic. It's relevant. Unfortunately, this was the only time in my playthrough I actually needed to jump. Jumping from a height does have fall damage. You lose health, or Dream Soul, as it calls it. You can see your remaining Dream Soul to the bottom right, and it recovers while you're in a safe zone map. Explore some more and finally find a combat map. The text box tells me I can now be attacked. Then this winged danger noodle flapped its way toward me, and I have absolutely no idea how combat works because there's been no explanation to it, and I die. Underlight is a game made back when reading the manual was a required first step in playing the game. When you die, you become a soul sphere. You can still move around and go through portals, but you cannot interact with anything physical. To become human again, return to a safe map and you'll slowly start to regain your health. And oh, if you go back to where you've died, you can pick up your own head. Just gonna take this as a little memento of my first death. So with combat showing how woefully unprepared I am for this game, I actually do go and read the manual, and what I find is, well, shocking. The Underlight wiki proudly explains, there is no way to win. There are no canned quests or fake characters. Every person you meet is real. Like life, you judge winning or losing on whether or not you have achieved your goals. What are your goals? So, no NPCs, no shopkeepers, quest givers, healers, blacksmiths, guildmasters. The only AI things in the game are hostile enemies. But if this is the case, how do I level up and learn new spells, or abilities, or go on quests if there are no quest givers? How do I join guilds or houses if there are no guild masters or house masters? How do I advance anything mechanical if there are no NPCs to interact with? Well, here's how it works. Games masters of Underlight can assign certain players to be teachers, and these teacher players have the ability to train other players in skills or accept them into houses or factions, or to reward them with prestige within those factions, or items or experience. Teachers set the in-game quests for other people to do. So, according to the wiki, and this is very important, levels are the measure of a dreamer's skill in a given art. Whenever a dreamer evokes an art, they have a chance to increase in level. The greater the level, the more difficult the chance of progressing. Every 10th level is known as a plateau. As with orbits and spheres, this special level requires that the dreamer seek out a teacher to progress. Training is a privilege, not a right. Dreamers do not automatically deserve to be trained simply because they are at the right level. The dreamer will be required to undertake a task or perform a series of missions in order to qualify for training. In all cases, it is up to the teacher to decide when the dreamer deserves to be trained, if at all. only teachers more powerful than the dreamer may advance a dreamer to a higher plateau. Simply put, playing and advancing through Underlight is entirely dependent on other, higher level, more powerful players allowing you to. You will only learn new skills or gain new levels or even actually have any solid context-driven gameplay provided to you when they deem you worthy. Imagine someone saying, hey, I want to make an MMO where the majority of the player base is completely at the mercy of the long-term higher level players, and if they don't like you, you just don't get to do anything. Yeah, I can't possibly imagine how this could ever go badly. This system means not only do the high level players need to like you for you to become high level as well, they also need to, be playing. And right now, there are 2 people online. Finally, I find the combat explanation. First, you need to summon your Gate Smasher blade by using the art. That adds it as an item to your inventory. Then you make sure it's equipped through the item menu. Then you press Control or click on the Use button to swing it once. Okay, now I'm armed. Let's go and take on that flying nope rope. Behold, combat. Now, despite being extremely basic, combat isn't actually that bad. Mechanically, it's fine. It's somewhat action-based. You move through the 3D space, dodging the enemy attacks and jumping in for yours. The game is also immensely proud of this system, with the main website stating, "You won't find any auto-attack here. Standing in one place, trading blows with a monster, not exciting enough. In our world, you swing your sword, or shoot your fireball, and move to dodge before the enemy strikes you." You know, like Meridian 59 did 2 years ago. While this thrilling battle is happening, quick note, Underlight released in 1998. Now, I can admire the network architecture for the time is impressive, and having multiple players together was not the easiest thing to do back then, so I'm not going to rag on the gameplay or the network connectivity. But I do need to talk about the storytelling, the immersion, the idea of you being involved in a world, because you know what other video games came out in 1998 that had really strong stories? Halflife, StarCraft, Metal Gear Solid, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Grim Fandango, Pokemon Red and Blue, Commandos, and Baldur's Gate. All games focusing on incredible character-driven narratives and deep stories without needing top-end graphics. Also, Meridian 59 came out 2 years prior, and that started with you talking to a bartender who sent you to a church to have you clear out a crypt of skeletons, and maps were much larger and far more involved than this. And you could roleplay. With the enemies finally dead, I gain 50 experience, and that's basically the entire game. I move on through some more portals, fight some more flying snakes, thankfully these die a lot faster than the first one, and then I just kind of exist. Oh, I do find these mission flags, probably put here by a teacher. They want a load of gemmed items brought to them as a kind of player-created quest. Okay, but you need to understand, handing this quest in requires the player that created it to actually be online to trade. And then it requires them to actually reward you. What Underlight is a virtual space. That's it. It's a space with some systems, but advancement through those systems is player-controlled. It's less of a game and more of an online community with a graphical interface. The game is almost a giant meta-guild itself, because you need someone to induct you into the game for any of it to have any meaning or content. I just keep wondering. I find this library, no books, only portals to various sphere halls, and I can't go in because I'm not the right sphere level. And even if I did play more, would I need another player, a teacher, to grant me that level and allow that access? Find this map, the Threshold Pits with these strange obsidian statues. They remind me somewhat of the Tenno from Warframe, but far too thin and twisted into off-putting angles. The whole experience is odd. I feel like an explorer trapped inside a soup of surreal melancholy, an oppressive empty landscape of an overly textured, jagged late 90s 3D game design blended with the gatekeeping and elitism of a forgotten niche online community. There is literally no one else around, and I still don't feel welcome. I explore the maze, which is indeed a maze, but it's also full of enemies I wasn't expecting, so I die. Again. Remember, to respawn as a human, you need to find your way back to a safe map, and without a world map, I don't know where I'm going. Thankfully, I'm able to just float around as a spirit. Also, sometimes the enemies jump, and their jump sound is the same as yours, and no matter how far away they are, the sound effect is still played at full volume, which gets very irritating very quickly. I explore around more. Playing Underlight is like exploring an abandoned supermarket, the shelves barren and the tills silent. If you were to wander the aisles, you could probably picture the hustle and bustle of the busy shoppers of years past, but it is no more. It is like an underfunded city centre with all the shops shuttered and boarded up. You may have great memories of spending long evenings with your mates browsing and window shopping, but returning now would just make you feel sad. Underlight is the perfect example of what happens when you make the community the driving force behind your game. When the community leave, you're left with a big, hollow, uninviting shell. And unfortunately, Underlight was created at a time in the MMORPG genre's lifespan that technology and advancements were happening so quickly you weren't going to keep a community when the next big thing was always around the corner. Eventually, my player list tells me there is one other person online. So I try to whisper at them, a fellow dreamer, a kindred spirit lost in the abandoned back rooms of MMO's past. But sadly, the game tells me, you are too far away to whisper to that player. So communication in Underlight is actually distanced based within the game maps. So what do the reviews say about this game? To be honest, it's kinda crap for a 1998 game, same year as Halflife, Zelda Ocarina of Time and Sonic Adventure. The combat is pretty boring and you could get the same amount of fun role-playing on any other online game. Expected an interactive multiplayer role-playing game. Got people spawn camping to ruin the fun for others, even with 2 people on. So far, it has been a blast, just looking at the world and exploring it, but when you realise there are decades of lore you need to learn that the players created themselves, that's when you know you're in a good place. This isn't some casual game, it's a role-playing game, so if you don't want to do heavy RP, don't bother with it. For people who do, get it immediately. A very old RPG that I played off and on for 20 years. Unfortunately, the new owner of the game has control issues, bans players that cannot agree with his rules, is limiting the game due to his limited imagination, and seems to have a need to be worshipped by other players so much he is willing to break his own rules. It is truly unfortunate that this has to happen in this day and age. As a result, I can no longer recommend the game for new players. Besides, it's Windows 95 graphics. Who wants to play that? Amazing game. Graphics are 90s, but the game is player-driven. Be evil, be good, whatever you want, you can be. A fantasy world that you help to shape. Story-driven roleplay, all the time. Doom-style combat system, graphics to match. A shared mental space through dreams. Shaped by the will of the dreamers. Learn from teachers who write your quests for you personally. Fallout 76, but worse and 25 years older. Do not recommend. Some of the textures on the wall in Underlight are off-putting in that uncanny valley way. Like this face, I feel like I'm looking at one of those AI artworks Twitter loves to keep showing me. More exploring. At this point, I've resolved to being a visual tourist. I know there's nothing for me here because the gameplay is other people and there are no other people. The cult that once was has disbanded. The dream, for many it seems, is over. I have a skill called Random, and when I invoke it, it says Chaos calls out to you, and then a number from 1 to 100. That's it. Chaos is calling out to me random numbers. You have given an entire ability to what is essentially just /roll100. There's also a Sense Dreamers spell. It tells me the majority of players are, right now, right where I am. That's quite depressing. Explore more, find the Hidden Ballroom, a grand, opulent room once host to the great galas and soirees of the virtual years past, now dusty and silent. In real life, I've walked out onto an abandoned theatre stage before. It's a strange feeling. It's not just empty, it's an aged empty. It's not just a lack of now, it's a lack of then and soon as well. Underlight is a multiplayer facilitator with no players, and it has nothing to give. It's like going paintballing on your own. The battleground may be beautiful, but you can sense its primary purpose is missing. It's like sitting on one end of a seesaw in a beautiful park, waiting for no one. I have a look through the wiki some more, and then I find this. Now this really drives home how roleplay focused this game and community is. You can pay real money to play as an enemy, or mare, short for nightmare. While a nightmare, you can hunt down regular players and kill them. But playing as a mare comes with its own set of rather draconian rules to enforce and maintain the roleplay element. Mayors cannot post on the Underlight forums because that will be out of character and any posts they make will be removed and their account may be disciplined. Mayors cannot be used by other players to carry out vendettas or contract killings. Mayors cannot use out of character knowledge to further their attacks on the players. It actually says it is not appropriate to coordinate attacks through Discord. Yeah, good luck policing that. And finally, mayors cannot complain that they are attacked without reason, saying being a mayor is reason enough. Rules and roleplay like this can only exist in small niche communities because the larger a community grows, the less cohesive it becomes and the more likely you are to encounter some bad actors. So I do understand Underlight trying to appeal to a smaller, more community-focused MMO niche, but then the game is designed to require a larger player base with so many houses and so many guilds and so many maps and skills and adventures to be had. You want to have the benefits of a smaller, closer player base while almost requiring a larger one to function. But you know what? Okay, let's roleplay. Underlight strictly enforces in-character acting. So how about we finish this review with a story? I remember my mum smiling, wishing me good luck. I remember her face, how proud she was. I remember her blowing me a kiss as I flung open the car door and hurried out. I remember the rain, torrential, lashing, cascading from the rooftops and running across the grey street in thick, snaking rivers, soaking into my shoes as I ran for the cover of the theatre side door, almost slipping on the metal pavement grating. I was hunched over, coddling my costume bag in my arms, trying to keep the contents dry. It was the dress rehearsal. I was a backing dancer. Not exactly star of the show, but everything in time. Do well today and maybe prove myself for the next. Who knows? I reached the open doorway, a sheet of solid water pouring like a veil over it. I ran in, hair tangled into soaked tendrils, dripping over the well-worn carpet. I was late, still needed to get changed and get on stage. So I grabbed the pen from the sign-in desk, scrawled my name down hastily in the book, catching my damp sleeve on the paper as I did, soaking the names of a few others, and then set off at speed down the corridor toward the changing rooms, the slap of my wet shoes marking every quickened step. The corridor of the theatre was small, an industrial performer entrance, walls covered in thick layers of cream paint, droplets having fallen onto the radiators and hardened over the years past, never to be tidied up, and small red doors lining the sides opening to cramped changing rooms, most already filled with actors applying makeup in brightened mirrors, or dancers lacing pristine white shoes. A far cry from the glamour and comfort of the audience ingress. In my rush, I almost fell into the backing dancer changing room, already full of the other dancers. Everyone was ready, pressed clean shirts, ironed trousers, polished shoes, and they scowled at me. It wasn't the first time I'd been late. I didn't have time to tell them another story. My mum had her book club. She lost track of time. She had yoga. She didn't cook dinner well. It was always something different. She didn't do it with malice. She's just forgetful. I wasn't, though. That definitely wasn't one trait I shared with her. I remembered everything. I remembered my shirt, and my jacket, and my makeup, and my shoes, and... Oh no. I can't find my shoes. I can't feel them in the bag. And the rehearsal was beginning. I turned my costume bag upside down and emptied it onto the tiny corner of the floor I called my own, brushing my clothes aside, and I forgot my shoes. Again. The other performers had already left the room, making their way to take their positions on the stage. No time to go back. Okay, just breathe. It's a rehearsal. It's just a rehearsal. I'll wear my soaking wet Converse for now, and I'll bring my smart black dress shoes tomorrow. Yeah, the director will shout at me, but it's okay. It's just a rehearsal. It's okay. I threw what costume I had on me on, leaving my still dripping clothes hanging up haphazardly on the dressing room radiator, nestled between the older kids' stuff, fighting for space, and then I ran out of the room. Back in the corridor, everyone had already prepared and left. I could see the metal steps at the end of the corridor leading up to the backstage area, and I could hear the overture slowly rising. So I ran, bounding down the corridor, wet footsteps echoing faintly. Reaching the steps, I leapt up them 3 at a time, and as I reached the top of the metal stairs, I slipped and fell. I don't remember the fall being that bad. I got up, dusted myself down, and straightened out my costume. My hair was still holding and looking good from the powder and prep, my shoes still shiny black, and the band was waiting for me to take centre stage. I walked calmly up the wooden stairs, took a deep breath, and stepped out onto the stage. It was empty. No director, no band, no backing dancers. Maybe I was early. I often couldn't remember what time things began. So I turned about and walked back down the corridor to the dressing room. As I passed the other red doors, I saw all the rooms empty. No signs of actors or dancers, no makeup, no clothes. Reaching my own dressing room, I tried the handle, and the door was locked. Strange. I don't remember anyone locking it. Maybe the audience were outside, queuing to get in, waiting for me. Maybe it was my meet and greet. Of course. So I left the building by the side exit, and it was sunny. The ground was dry. The sky was oddly flat, and the distance wasn't. I could only see what was close to me. Confusing, although I knew it was wrong. The gravel path occasionally patched with tufts of grass, rocks rising to my side at right angles, sometimes floating above me. I don't remember them being here before. So I walked, and as I walk, I begin to remember less. I don't remember why I needed some new shoes, but I know I needed shoes. I don't remember what I was signing in for, although I can remember signing. I don't remember why I was running. I don't remember what I was doing. I don't remember where I am. So I stop, dead still, silent, and incomplete. I need to remember. What am I doing? Why am I here? The world around me, where am I going to? Where have I come from? I focus. I go back. I need to remember. I need to make myself recall. And when I strain my memory and visualize, I can see and I can remember my mum smiling, wishing me good luck. I remember her face, how proud she was. I remember her blowing me a kiss as I flung open the car door and hurried out. I remember the rain, torrential, lashing, cascading from the rooftops and running across the grey street in thick, snaking rivers, soaking into my shoes as I ran for the cover of the theatre side door, almost slipping on the metal pavement grating. I was hunched over, coddling my costume bag in my arms, trying to keep the contents dry. It was the dress rehearsal. I was a backing dancer. Not exactly star of the show, but everything in time. Do well today and maybe prove yourself for the next. Who knows? That was a short, circular, psychological horror story of energy, anticipation, accident, and memory. It's a story full of potential that goes nowhere and keeps repeating itself. Underlight is a shell of a game, a holder of memories past, yet creator of them no more. It leant far too heavily into the community make the game angle and died when the community inevitably left, as communities often do. Underlight is less of a traditional MMO and more of a social network. You can form connections, relationships, you can go on adventures, but you have to create the adventure itself. And just like previous social networks, Bebo, MySpace, Google+, when people start to leave and there's no one to be social with, there's no reason for the network to exist. It has nothing to offer which is not player-created and player-driven, but it has no players to create and no players to drive it. It is a relic of a bygone era when MMOs thought they should provide the bare minimum and the player base will do the rest. Judging Underlight from my experience now seems almost unfair. It's like judging a club by walking in during the day when there's no one around and no music playing, or judging a party when you're the only one who turned up. I'm aware Underlight is a community first, with the gameplay aspect being a distant second. I'm not judging the community, I'm judging the game design, and the game design, because it relies so heavily on community involvement, is not that good. The teacher advancement system was immersive for the time the community was thriving, but foolish in the long term. It will not survive. If you download this now, do so as a visual tourist. It's worth the journey around for the surreal element, but I cannot imagine anyone settling down here today. So to end the review, I would love to give Underlight a score out of 10, but I can't because I don't have that skill and I haven't found anyone to teach me how to do it. Cheers for watching. Another massive thank you to the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel alive. You can support from only £1 a month. Check the video description for links to the Patreon, Twitch, Twitter, Discord, and the second channel Josh Drive Plays, where I replay and review classic games voted on by you. Cheers for your time, and as always, have a great day.